Hey guys, I'm Mindy with Rod and Reel. Welcome back to my channel. Tonight we're going to be talking about two of the most haunted dolls, Annabelle and Robert. First up, we have the terrifying true story of the infamous Annabelle doll. When most people think of haunted dolls, they think of cracked porcelain, glass eyes. But one of the most infamous haunted objects in the world looks like a harmless children's toy. It's a simple Raggedy Ann doll, and yet investigators believe it may have been demonically manipulated. Let's go back to 1970, where Annabelle came to be. A young nursing student named Donna was living in an apartment with her roommate Angie in Connecticut. For Donna's birthday, her mother gave her a vintage Raggedy Ann doll. This is something that she had found at like a local thrift store. The doll looked harmless. Donna placed it on her bed and basically didn't think anything more of it. But within just a few days, strange things started to happen. When Donna would leave her apartment, the doll would be sitting upright on her bed, but when Donna would return, the doll would be on the couch. At first, like most people, Donna assumed that it was her roommate doing it. But Angie insisted that she had not touched the doll. And then soon, the doll began appearing in completely different rooms. Doors that had been closed were suddenly open. The doll sometimes appeared with its legs crossed or arms positioned differently, and neither roommate could explain how the doll moved. Then things began to escalate. The roommates began finding small pieces of parchment paper around their apartment, and the notes would have chilling childlike messages on them like, "Help me" or "Help us." And the strange part here is that Donna and Angie allegedly didn't even own parchment paper. No one seemed to know where these notes were coming from, but they realized that the notes were appearing every time the doll moved. So that's when the girls decided to call a psychic medium in to help. The medium told the girls that this doll was inhabited by an innocent little girl spirit, and that her name was Annabelle Higgins. According to the story, Annabelle had died years earlier on the land where the apartment building was built. The medium claimed that the little girl spirit felt safe with Donna and Angie and simply just wanted to be with them because she felt comfort. Feeling sympathy for this supposed spirit of a child, Donna and Angie decided to keep the doll and the spirit around. But that decision would soon terrify them. One night, their friend Lou had woken up suddenly on the couch. He felt like someone was watching him, and when he looked at the end of the couch, the doll was there, staring at him. Lou claimed that the doll slowly began climbing up his chest. He couldn't move. He couldn't scream. He felt like he was being strangled. Then suddenly, the doll disappeared. The next day, Lou suffered another terrifying experience. While walking past Donna's room, he heard noises coming from inside her room. But when he opened the door, the room was completely empty. But the doll was sitting in the corner. As he approached it, Lou suddenly felt this sharp pain across his chest. His shirt tore open, revealing deep, scratched, claw-like marks. And obviously, that was the moment that the roommates realized that something more sinister and dark was involved. Absolutely terrified, the roommates contacted two of the most famous paranormal investigators, Ed and Lorraine Warren. They're known for their work with The Conjuring House, with Amityville Horror, obviously Annabelle, and many more paranormal cases. The Warrens immediately rejected the psychic medium's evaluation of this spirit. They said the doll was not possessed by a child spirit. Instead, they believed something much more sinister was happening. According to the Warrens, spirits cannot possess objects, but demons can manipulate them. The Warrens performed a blessing inside the apartment. They removed the doll, but even in transport, things became very terrifying. During the drive home, Ed Warren said that the car began stalling randomly throughout the drive. The brakes failed multiple times. According to Ed, the doll was responsible. Eventually, they sprinkled holy water on the doll and the problem stopped. The doll was then placed inside a locked glass case at the Warren Occult Museum. A warning was placed on the case. Warning, positively do not open. One of the most chilling stories actually happened a few years later. A young man who was visiting the Warrens museum, he began mocking the Annabelle doll. He was banging on the glass. He dared Annabelle to scratch him. Lorraine Warren warned him that he needed to stop and that he needed to leave. But this visitor continued mocking the doll and laughing. Later that night, this visitor left on his motorcycle, and not long after, this man lost control of the bike and crashed. He died instantly. Today, the real Annabelle doll remains locked within a case. It was kept for decades in the Warren Occult Museum in Monroe, Connecticut. Despite its simple appearance, many paranormal investigators believe it to be one of the most dangerous haunted objects in the world. Next up, we have another infamous doll. This doll sits behind a glass in a museum in Key West, Florida. At first glance, it looks harmless. It wears a tiny sailor suit. It holds a small stuffed dog, and it sits quietly in a wooden chair. But before visitors take a photo, museum staff warned them of something strange. You must first ask the doll for permission, because if you don't, people claim terrible things start to happen. Car accidents, sudden illness, unexplainable bad luck. And many of those people have later written letters begging the doll for forgiveness. This is the chilling story of Robert the doll. The story begins in the early 1900s with a boy named Robert Eugene Otto. Friends and family simply called him Gene. Gene lived in a large house with his parents in Key West, Florida. His family was extremely wealthy, and one day, Gene received a strange gift, a handmade doll, nearly as big as Gene himself, wore a sailor suit and had human-like glass eyes. Gene immediately fell in love with this doll, and he named the doll Robert. Soon the two became inseparable. Gene instantly began talking to Robert. He carried it around the house, and he even insisted that the doll have its own seat at the dinner table. At first, the parents tried to brush it off as just an innocent explanation, such as a child's imagination. But then strange things started to happen. Late at night, Gene's parents would hear him talking to someone in his bedroom. At first, they thought it was Gene just talking to himself, but later they talked about how they actually were hearing two voices, not just Gene's. The second voice sounded lower. It sounded angrier. And when they asked Gene who he was talking to, he would always give the same answer. I'm talking to Robert. And then the household staff, remember, like I said earlier, this was a very wealthy family. The household staff began noticing some pretty unsettling things taking place within the home. The doll seemed to change positions when nobody was around. Servants claimed they would leave the doll sitting on a chair, only to find it later staring out a window. And then moments later, they would find it in another room, and it was almost like it was walking through the house. One day, Jean's parents heard a loud crash upstairs. They rushed upstairs into the room where the noise came from, and they saw that furniture had been overturned, toys were scattered everywhere, and Jean was sitting on the bed, absolutely terrified. When they asked what happened, he pointed to the doll and said something chilling. Robert did it. Over time, whenever something strange would occur in the house, Jean would always blame Robert. Broken objects, strange noises, even scratches that appeared on walls. And every time, Jean said the same thing. Robert did it. Years later, Jean grew up and became an artist, and eventually he moved back into the same house where he grew up. And he brought Robert the doll with him. But by then, Jean treated the doll in a very strange way. The doll had its own chair, its own room, and Jean insisted that Robert always face the window so he could watch the street. Visitors to the home said Jean sometimes stopped in the middle of conversations, turned to the doll, and seemed to listen, as if Robert had something to say. When Robert Eugene Otto died in 1974, the house was sold to a new family. Soon, the new owners reported strange things happening. The young daughter claimed that the doll would move by itself at night. She said it would run across the floor. She said it laughed. And she claimed that the doll sometimes would climb onto her bed while she slept. Terrified, the family eventually donated the doll to Fort East Martello Museum. And that's where Robert still sits today. But the strangest part of this story didn't even happen in the house. It happened after Robert went on display. Visitors who mocked the doll or took photos without asking for permission first began claiming they experienced strange misfortune. Some said they were injured in accidents. Others said they lost jobs or relationships shortly after. Many of those people eventually mailed letters to the museum blaming Robert. Many of them also sent apology letters to Robert. Hundreds of them. Today, the museum keeps the entire collection of letters from people asking Robert to forgive them. So, if you ever visit the Fort East Martello Museum, you'll hear the same warning. Before taking a photo, you must politely ask, "Robert, may I take your picture?" Some visitors claim that the doll's expression changes once you ask. Others claim that the room suddenly becomes drastically colder. And a few even say that the doll's head will slightly move. Maybe Robert the doll is just an old toy surrounded by a century of legends. Or maybe the stories are true. One thing is certain. Even today, people still send apology letters to a doll sitting behind glass in a museum. And if you ever stand in front of Robert, you might want to be polite, because If the stories are real, the last thing you want is to make him angry.